every reason you feel stuck. If you've ever had a clear goal in your head but couldn't seem to move toward it, you already know what being stuck feels like. It's not laziness. It's not a lack of ambition. It's something else entirely, and most people don't realize how many invisible forces are quietly holding them in place. Let's start with the most obvious one, the decision overload. You wake up, and before you even leave your bed, you've already made a dozen tiny choices: what to wear, what to eat, whether to check your phone, whether to reply to that text, and that's just the first 10 minutes. By the time you get to the thing you actually want to work on, the real goal, the important project, your brain is already tired. This isn't about willpower, it's about mental energy. Every decision you make drains a little bit of that energy, even the small ones. So by the time you sit down to do something that matters, you feel stuck, not because you don't care, but because your brain has already spent its fuel on 100 things that didn't matter as much. And here's the part most people miss. When you feel stuck, you start thinking something's wrong with you. You blame yourself, but really, you're just running on empty. Now let's talk about the gap between the knowing versus doing. You know what you need to do. You've probably known for weeks, maybe months, but knowing doesn't move you forward, and that's confusing because it feels like knowledge should be enough. If you understand the problem, shouldn't you be able to fix it? But the brain doesn't work that way. Knowing something and doing something live in completely different parts of your mind. One is logic, the other is emotion, habit, and context. And most of the time, the emotional part wins. So you know you should save money, but you still spend it. You know you should work on that project, but you scroll instead. You know you should have that difficult conversation, but you avoid it. And every time you don't do the thing you know you should do, the gap gets wider. You start to feel more stuck, not less. This is where it gets interesting. Because the more stuck you feel, the more your brain tries to protect you. And one of the ways it does that is by creating the comfortable distractions. These aren't random, they're specific. They're the things that feel productive but aren't. Reorganizing your desk, planning instead of starting, researching for hours without taking action, watching videos about success instead of building something yourself. Your brain loves this because it gets to feel busy without facing risk, and risk is what being unstuck requires. Real progress always involves uncertainty. It involves the chance that you might fail or look stupid or realize you're not as far along as you thought. So instead, you stay in motion without moving forward. You're active, but you're stuck. And this leads to something bigger, the weight of unfinished things. Think about how many projects, ideas, or goals you've started and never completed. They're still sitting in the back of your mind, quietly draining energy. Every time you think about starting something new, your brain reminds you of all the things you didn't finish, and that makes starting feel even harder. It's not that you're a quitter, it's that every unfinished thing adds a little bit of mental weight. And after a while, that weight makes it almost impossible to move. Most people don't realize how much space these unfinished things take up. You think you've moved on, but your brain hasn't. It's still tracking them, still reminding you, still making you feel like you're not the kind of person who finishes what they start. Now, here's another layer, the fear of wrong choices. When you feel stuck, it's often because you're standing at a crossroads. Maybe you're deciding between two jobs, two cities, two versions of your future, and you can't move forward because you're terrified of picking the wrong one. So you wait, you gather more information, you ask more people, you make lists. But no amount of thinking will make the decision feel safe, because the truth is, you don't know what's going to happen. No one does. And the longer you wait, the more stuck you become. Because now you're not just afraid of making the wrong choice, you're also afraid of how much time you've already wasted by not choosing at all. At first, this doesn't seem like a big deal, but it creates a loop. The fear of choosing keeps you stuck, and being stuck makes you more afraid, and the cycle continues. Now let's shift to something quieter, the stories you tell yourself, the self-talk stories. You might not notice this one, but it's always there. It's the voice in your head that says things like, "I'm not the kind of person who does that," or "I've never been good at this," or "People like me don't get those kinds of opportunities." These aren't facts, they're stories. But because you've told them to yourself so many times, they feel true. And once something feels true, it shapes everything you do. If you believe you're not creative, you won't try creative things. If you believe you're bad with money, you won't take steps to learn. If you believe you're stuck, you'll stay stuck, not because you have to, but because that's the story you're living inside of. And here's the tricky part. These stories are often invisible. You don't realize you're telling them. They just run in the background, quietly steering your choices. Now let's talk about the comfort of staying the same, the comfort zone. Change is uncomfortable, even when you want it. Even when staying the same is painful, because at least the pain you're in right now is familiar. You know how to live with it. You've built your life around it. But the unknown, that's terrifying. You don't know what's on the other side of change. You don't know if you'll be able to handle it. You don't know if it'll be better or worse. So you stay. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is wired to avoid uncertainty. And staying stuck, as miserable as it feels, is still more predictable than taking a risk. This is why people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that don't work, and cities that drain them. It's not that they don't want something better, it's that the fear of the unknown is stronger than the pain of right now. Here's the part most people miss. You're stuck because you're thinking too much. The overthinking trap. When you overthink, you're not solving the problem. You're stalling. You're running simulations in your head, imagining every outcome, trying to find the perfect path. But there is no perfect path. And the more you think, the more reasons you find not to move. Action doesn't require certainty. It just requires a first step. But when you're stuck, that first step feels impossible. Not because it's hard, but because you've convinced yourself it has to be perfect. And this leads to something deeper. You're waiting for permission. Maybe not consciously, but somewhere inside, you're waiting for someone to tell you it's okay, to tell you you're ready, to tell you you're allowed. But no one's coming. The permission you're waiting for doesn't exist. You have to give it to yourself. And that's terrifying, because it means you're responsible. There's no one else to blame if it doesn't work out. So you stay stuck, because being stuck means you don't have to take that risk. You don't have to own the outcome. You don't have to face the possibility that you might fail. Let me add one more thing: the people around you, the social influence. You might not realize it, but the people you spend time with have a huge influence on whether you stay stuck or start moving. If everyone around you is stuck, staying stuck feels normal. If no one's talking about goals, growth, or change, it's harder to imagine those things for yourself. This isn't about blaming your friends or family. It's just about understanding that environments shape behavior. And if your environment doesn't support movement, staying still becomes the default. At some point, you have to ask yourself, are the people around me helping me grow, or are they helping me stay comfortable? If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks so much for watching, guys.